Welcome everyone to a new AI Crossfield episode. Today we have a genuinely interesting business owner. His name is Chris McElroy. He's been in SEO since 1995. I'm really excited to dive in and have a really good discussion around where he sees AI, where he implementing workflow. So Chris, thank you for coming along and welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
People always assume us old dinosaurs can't adapt to the new technology like AI and stuff like that, but we've been adapting for 30 years.
Amazing. Let's start with that then. Let's start with, how did you see the opportunity back in 95? How you end up doing SEOs? At the time, I don't think the term existed.
Yeah, back then, there wasn't a lot of things that existed. It was wild, wild west on the internet because, you started out just, you chatted with girls online, you know what I mean? And then it started to, what got me was when I went to a web page and I'm looking at this visual thing on my screen, and I had used previous computers where you had DOS and everything, whatever. But this visual representation was there. And I'm like, how do they do that? How are they making that happen? So I started looking under the hood. I taught myself some HTML. I had started out buying and selling domain names. That was my first digital marketing. Okay. But I wanted to put websites up explaining why I registered the domain name and what I think it's a good use case. Okay. So, and believe it or not, started this whole business by accident because I built a web page about how to build a web page step by step. And at the bottom of each page, I put, if you still have questions, just drop me an email. And I was actually just trying to be helpful to my buddies that sell domains, right? Everybody emailed me and just asked me if I could do it for them. And I'm still doing it.
That's an amazing way to start a business, right? Helping people.
And I've kind of kept that philosophy. The more helpful you are to people, the more people will reach out to you and talk to you about doing something. If you're not always just pitching all the time, trying to sell, you be helpful first, get to know somebody, help them with a problem they have, or, teach them something they didn't know, something like that. They're going to remember you better, and they're going to remember you in a positive way. And when they have a problem and they reach out again, they're going to be like, can you just do it for me?
What's that? So what happened after that? People start reaching out.
Yeah, people reached out, and I got to studying it more. I started running a webmaster forum to teach how to do affiliate marketing back in the late 90s, and was introducing search engine optimization. But you got to remember, back then we had like 20 different search engines and directories to work from. We didn't just have Google. So it was kind of a big deal then to actually rank somewhere or be listed in Yahoo on the front page or something like that was a real big deal. And so studied it more. Early 2000s or just the late 90s, I got into article marketing, which was the precursor for content marketing, basically. There was a bunch of article directories. People wrote articles, they submitted them to the article directories, and they got a bunch of backlinks for it and stuff like that. But the reason we can't have nice things is people come along and they used automated software called article spinning software, and started generating a whole bunch of synonyms and stuff like that, and really garbage type articles, and flooding the article directories full of them. And so Google did the Panda and the Penguin update around 2010 to 2011, right in there, and killed off all of that. Everybody lost all those backlinks. All at one time. Everybody was whining in the forums. And so I see that kind of happening now. I know we were talking about workflow and AI, but just to jump forward to today and kind of give a comparison there. A lot of people are using AI to generate a bunch of articles, trying to cover every keyword possible and just throw it out there. That's not new. That's what they did back then before Google did the update and killed all that stuff off. And history's repeating itself. You might get a boost for a short time, but as soon as it catches on, the algorithms catch on, and all of a sudden you got nothing and your domain is completely ruined. Even Google came out and even said that if you do something like that and you do the content abuse or the mass content abuse, he said you may as well start over because it would be easier than recovering a domain name that got punished for that.
Interesting. So you're not seeing optimization of searching within OpenAI or Claude or Gemini as a new trend, rather than it's more repeating what we had in 2010.
Well, the one advantage that I do have, having been here 30 years, is SEO has evolved all along. It's always evolving. Okay, so when you see a big change, like AI is a huge change. It's probably the biggest evolution. Okay, but it's still just something you have to adapt to. If you didn't already know how to do good SEO or write good content, AI is not going to suddenly make you an expert at writing content or doing good SEO. It's a tool, and it still needs somebody that knows how to interpret that data, that knows when it's being given something that's not going to actually help, knowing intuitively that it's hallucinating, that's a good method. You know what I'm saying? Because you've tried it before, So I think some of the more experienced SEOs that agree with me on the forums and stuff is, if you don't have that bigger picture of what SEO is and how it evolves, it's going to be hard for you to be an expert at just optimizing for AI, because a lot of those things are still SEO.
AI is an amplifier for a good SEO, but not necessarily, a full replacement of that. Do you see a lot of clients coming now, and maybe your existing client or somebody new coming in and saying, I don't want SEO, I'm caring about AEO. Do you see lots of clients coming around that? Right. Okay.
A little of both. I had one the other day. As soon as I brought up AI visibility, like, we don't want anything to do with AI. I mean, they were just real quick to shut me down. And I said, all search right now is AI powered. Okay. It doesn't mean you're going to use AI to write your content or build your website or do anything like that. But you have to be visible to AI, because all search, including Google, is powered by AI. So there's not a choice of not being visible to AI, or you're just going to be invisible altogether. Okay. But you can call it AEO, and it's very specific, but it's like PPC. Some people consider that part of an SEO's job too. Okay. But it's still, SEO is still the umbrella. SEO is still the core of what you do. Because when a lot of people post about AEO or GEO being SEO 2.0 or different from SEO, the one thing I like to ask them is, name 3 things that you do for GEO that you don't do for SEO. You really can't, because they'll say, well, brand mentions and publishing on, these other platforms. That's digital publishing, been done for years. Digital PR has been done for years. You have to put a positive message out. Reputation management's been around pretty much since the start. Okay. You have to have this high quality structured content. Well, if you were doing SEO right in the first place, then you were already doing that. Okay. Because it requires good structured content with clear headers, content chunking, they call it now, but clear subtopics with a header that's relative to the content that's below it. Whether that's a question or not a question doesn't really affect anything. I wouldn't build huge pages that look like an FAQ where every header is a question. That's an obvious pattern that it's not natural. My bottom line is, if you write for people, the more you write for people, for human beings, okay, the more you're going to surface in AI and in Google. Okay. Think about who you're writing to first. You're not writing to machines. So too much focus on structure and schema, and whether you have an LLMs.txt file or some MD files and all this stuff, just write to who you're writing to. Don't try to write for everyone. Figure out your ideal customer, write to them, and explain it like you would explain it to a friend. Quit trying to polish it. AI can do polished. It can do professional, but it's dry and and it can do informative. Okay. Those are not your differentiators. If just because you polish it and you make it professional and you make it informative, that doesn't differentiate you from AI generated content. And it doesn't differentiate you enough that it even needs to give you an attribution for using your content, because you're just saying the same thing everybody else is saying anyway. Okay. You've got to tell stories. You got to add some anecdotes. Things like, in my experience, this, or 2 months ago, I had a client and we did this. Okay. Or this is something I learned new just recently, sharing personal experiences and telling the story and being transparent and just being a human writing is the best AI SEO advice I can give anyone. Be authentic. Don't act authentic. Don't try to humanize your content. Be human. Be actually authentic. Be transparent. Even write blog posts about a huge mistake you made. It's not going to make you lose customers because, he made a mistake. Everybody does. But it's a good personal story. Post that mistake and then tell how you resolved it and what you learned from it and what you're advising other people how to avoid making the same mistake. Just be real. I'm sorry. That's the easiest, everybody wants to know it. And the other thing about being visible to AI, there's a lot of talk about brand mention tracking. You cannot track brand mentions. It doesn't matter what SEMrush and Mozer and everybody else is telling you. They don't have the raw data. They don't have the person's conversation. You and I can ask ChatGPT right now the same exact question and get totally different answers because it knows a lot of things about each of us, and it's going to tailor its answers based on what it thinks we're interested in. You can't mimic that by taking a bot and just stuffing it full of prompts and getting a response. It's not the same thing users see. But what we can track is where it's pulling information that it's willing to cite. Okay. So we know it likes Reddit. We know it likes LinkedIn. We know it likes Wikipedia. We know it likes YouTube, these different platforms, right? The best advice, if you want to be found on and get cited more, is get in the way. Be on the platforms where it's pulling the information and post regularly with a good, consistent message and associate your brand with the same consistent message across all of the things that you're doing. And it will start to build trust in who you are and what you're about. And once that trust is established, it's going to cite you more often.
So if I'm starting a business today, Chris, right? And one of our audience actually asked me that question the other day on the comments is, if I'm starting a business today and I'm going through all these platforms, I know that I need visibility. Maybe I vibe coded the website, but it's live. I bought the domain. All is good. Where do I implement AI and where do I not? Because I'm thinking AI can actually amplify, my visibility. I can write a text and then connect that to Higgsfield or whatever, get a video on Instagram, TikTok, and take it to LinkedIn and also Twitter and Reddit. Therefore, I'm existed everywhere. Everyone sees what I'm talking about. Exactly. What's the right or wrong in that kind of approach?
Well, publication and distribution are two different things, and they're important. I mean, obviously, just publishing the content and it living on your website is not as good as amplifying it and getting it out there. Okay. But there are good ways. Any type of distribution like that is helpful, but there are ways to enhance that. And the first thing I would do, you asked about if I'm starting a business. So if I was going to tell anybody to study one thing, okay, instead of trying to get their mind wrapped around digital marketing as a total, okay, entity SEO, okay, just they can Google that, you know what I mean? But because it's like the 5 W's. It's telling Google and AI the who, what, where, when, and why of everything you're doing. Okay. The more clear you are on that, the more it starts to build trust in what you're doing because it knows more about you. You've explained it well. You've made it clear, both in your content, your code, everything else. It's always reinforcing the relationships between your personal name, your business name, your brand name, your services, your core messages, right? So if I was going to advise somebody starting a brand new business, the first thing I would do is, do you know the clear relationship between all of those to make sure that you can explain that well, not just to AI, but to people, okay? So I would get that clear messaging straightened out first. You talked about the distribution part of the content, a cornerstone piece of content. This is just one method, but I'm going to give you one good starting method, okay? And you can expand on it from there. Write a good cornerstone piece of content about one thing, like AI workflows, let's say. Okay, since that's kind of your arena there, right? There's lots of subtopics under that, though, right? There's lots of things that are associated with AI workflows. There's different types of workflows, different types of tools, and all that, right? So write a really good, long, thorough piece of content about that with subsections for each topic. Okay. Get that all lined out, get it flowing well. Okay. Once you've completed that, don't just go share that on social media or across all your platforms or make one video or whatever. Take each subsection, block quote something from there. And let's say you go to LinkedIn. Okay. And you run a newsletter there or whatever. Okay. Block quote one subtopic, one subsection. Put it into a LinkedIn article, write a brand new introduction that only talks about that subtopic, and then summarize it just below that. Okay, so now you have a whole new article that's more specific than that general cornerstone piece that you wrote. That block quote links back to the original. You can also put in a couple of contextual links to a certain web page or a call to action, whatever you're going to put in there. But now you have a brand new article and Google will treat it like a brand new article. Now you have another presence and you've covered that in depth now. So now take that same section and make that short YouTube video and go post it on YouTube and put a new description in. Okay, now that's a whole new video. Now take it and make that section into an infographic and go share that on Facebook. Okay, take and make it into a LinkedIn carousel and put it back on LinkedIn again. Okay?
Would you still use AI workflow to kind of orchestrate all of that?
I'm actually building an app for that. I'm actually making an app that's going to be very intelligent and will know every single platform and every image size and the whole 9 yards and be able to track your articles over time and how they're performing. So that's a whole new thing I'm working on. I've got the MVP and I'm testing it, but
brilliant.
So we're getting there, but it's thinking about, rather than just distribution, repurpose. Okay. Make new content out of each of those sections. So let's say that cornerstone piece of content had, 5 sections, a YouTube video, an infographic, a PDF download, a LinkedIn carousel. Let's say we make 5 different formats out of every one of those sections. You've got 25 brand new pieces of content that you can use on all of your channels anywhere you want. Okay. Out of just one article. Everybody wants to write lots of new blog posts. Well, I need to write one a week. I need to write one every 3 days. I need to have this content scheduled. No, you don't. Pick a topic that you really want to reinforce for the whole month. Write one good cornerstone piece of content, then take those sections and make them into different formats and start using those. And what AI sees and what Google sees, let's back up and look at the bigger picture. Not only did you write a good in-depth article on it, you covered every possible angle and on multiple platforms and multiple channels. You are everywhere talking about this, and you've covered it more thorough because you didn't just write one thorough article. You covered every part of it in depth across the web.
Fantastic. Love that. So I think basically what we're saying is focus on creating content that is authentic by you. The creativity is still not offloaded. Don't offload that to AI. But maybe the intricacies that happens after that in terms of distribution, in terms of,
Sure.
process maps, things like that.
That's kind of why I'm working on the app I was telling you about. Is you need to be able to track. I can probably ask 100 SEO agencies if they have a list of all the URLs of all the content they ever posted. I bet you they don't. Do they know if they're all still even indexed in Google? Probably not. Okay, they wrote them, they forgot about them. It had its life cycle, whatever. What I'm working on right now, one of the things is I want it to track and test to see whether those articles that we've written, it doesn't matter whether it's a year ago, are they still ranking in Google? Are they still indexed? Okay. If they're not, we fix that. The next time we repurpose an article, we link back to that old article again, so we can use that intelligence from AI to track all those URLs in the database. It can track where they are. It knows all the URLs, like I said. So it can see whether it's still indexed. It can see if it's still up to date even. Okay. Does it need to be updated with fresher information? Okay. People spend so much money on just producing new content. All the money you invested and all the time you invested in all of that old content. Why are we forgetting about that? That's money that you're leaving on the table. You've already paid to have it written. You've already paid in time or money, whatever. You've put investment into that. Every piece of content is an asset. Okay. Keep it. You know what I mean? Keep it and make sure it's live and make sure you can keep using it. And AI can definitely help with that part. The organizing part is beyond me. There's no way I have the bandwidth to track all that and check to see whether they're all indexed and all that. Without AI, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Good point. What are your clients currently saying to you about AI? Is there a similar theme around, I don't know, fear, excitement?
It depends on the client. Mostly it's either curiosity or completely they don't want to get involved. Okay. But I'm talking to them about marketing. They don't want it in their marketing. That doesn't mean they don't want to use it in their workflow. That doesn't mean they're not going to use tools. And honestly, I think a lot of people are going to use AI in their business and not even realize that they are, and not even realize that they've started using AI, because it's going to be built into tools that they do adopt and start using. It's already integrated with Gmail, Google Calendar, everything else. Anybody using Gmail and Google Calendar is probably using some AI, So every tool they use, whether they use a CRM or they use whatever it is they use in their business, it's going to get integrated anyway. AI is the Borg. If anybody gets that old reference from Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe a question around how you operate today. Where would you say in your operation in terms of getting clients, doing the delivery and then customer success, the whole cycle, you're using AI today, and where you're like, no, I'm not going to use it in this particular part of the business?
I don't need it to help me with my email, really. Okay. I get a lot of email and I have to sort it, but it really doesn't take me that much. I'm not going to build a tool or you know what I'm saying, or anything like that to help me there. My calendar doesn't take me that long. I don't really need it for the basic things like that. Not even WordPress maintenance. I maintain a lot of sites and I have to actually update the plugins and stuff, and I do it every day, but it takes me no time because I have a system. So I'm not really going to have AI to do something like that. I look at the places where I have a list of things, obviously, that different things that I have to do. What's not getting done over time. So I track a lot about, I have things in categories basically, and I track it, and what's not getting done because I don't have time to get to it because other priorities are taking up time. that's where I start looking for a tool from AI to help me with that thing that's either that thing that's not getting done or something else so that I can get to that thing that's not being done. So you start identifying places that are real bottlenecks that are really taking up your time. And what are you missing out on? Okay. And if AI can take something off your plate or speed something up so that that's no longer getting ignored, then that's really high value. I mean, I don't see anybody not wanting to do that.
And is that more of a personal assistant? It's just categorization and prioritization as core? Or is it more like, no, go do it. I don't want to do it.
Are you familiar with Clairvoyant by Stardock?
Clarvo.
Clairvoyant. There's a program that Stardock software put out just recently. It's called Clairvoyant. And
Okay.
you create an AI staff and you can hook up all your AIs, Claude, Gemini, all that stuff. And you can build specific agents and give them specific skills and specific tasks. Okay. So also working on that. I've got it set up, but I haven't created my staff yet. Let's put it that way. Cause I'm still identifying. I haven't had to do that before. I'm identifying where those gaps are that I need to fulfill. I don't want to use AI just for the sake of saying, hey, I'm using AI. I want it to be truly useful and really save me time.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the first task is where in your business, what's not getting done? Why isn't it getting done? Okay. What's slowing you down? Identify those real gaps and then find AI to help you or tools that already have AI implemented or whatever to help you get rid of those bottlenecks. I think that's the real pain point.
I really think, the approach that you're taking in terms of first, let's identify it before we think about, okay, I want an agent that goes and does X, Y, and Z. I need to identify and know what it is first, and then I'll know what needs to be done.
Well, I think we all have to self-examine those things sometime and just analyze our own business from the outside in. And I've got friends and I do that experiment once in a while. If you were running my agency, what would you change? That's a great experiment to do with somebody else. Pick another business owner that and just, all right, let's switch places for a minute. Let me go in and show you how I would make your business more efficient. And you come over and tell me how you'd make mine better. Be surprised what you learn from something like that, right? But you can also use AI to do that. You can tell AI, look, don't consider anything set in stone. What would you change about my business? Start examining things that way, and I use AI that way a lot, not just examining my business, but giving me an outside view of something. I'll tell it, forget all the memory, forget trying to please me or tell me I'm the greatest out of 99% of the marketers. Okay. Forget all that stuff. Analyze this. And I want you to tear it apart. Tell me why it's inefficient, how it could be done better. The more you ask AI to push back on you, the more quality output you're going to get from AI. If you just ask it questions and it answers, you're missing the biggest point. It will push back if you teach it to push back.
Is there anything at the end of this episode, Chris, you want to share with people who are maybe rethinking about SEO in an age of an AI, maybe building a website or coming up with a new digital footprint for their business? What would you say to them?
I would actually take out a piece of paper, believe it or not, old school, write down your name, write down your brand name, your company name, write down the names of your products and the names of your services. Okay. But do one more thing, write out the outcomes that those services give to your customers, not just what the service is. Okay, like I do SEO, but I focus on generating leads and sales, not just rankings. So I have a core saying called ranking is vanity and sales is sanity. Okay, so it's a nice little catchy phrase or whatever. And so when I'm talking about that, I can reiterate that phrase. across. And believe it or not, Google and AI start to know what that means, and they start associating it with me because I consistently use that messaging. So mapping everything out is probably the first step. Okay. Get everything, even if you've been in business for a while, if you haven't clearly identified the relationship between all of those things, all of your entities, and each one, anything that's a thing is an entity. Okay. That can be a slogan, brand, service, name, everything. Okay. Can you draw lines between them and tell how that what that relationship is between them? Okay. If you can do that, then you have a good starting point. Now pick 3 things that you want your brand, each of your entities to be known for. Okay. So let's talk with your brand first. Okay. What are 3 things you want people to immediately think about? Like with Allstate, you're in good hands with Allstate. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. That core phrase, you knew it was Allstate. I mean, they didn't have to say the word Allstate. You could just, well, it's in the phrase, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. You automatically assume it though. You know, it's got that feel, right? So once you have those 3, every bit of your messaging out there, you can even look for places where you can comment on somebody else's article or somebody else's post and say, well, that's why we use this. And you can actually use the phrase again. When you're writing an article, somewhere in the article, you're going to mention one of those 3 core phrases again, right? Everything you do, you have to train your mind that these are the 3 things that I want my brand to be known about. Don't put them in unnaturally where they don't fit. Find where they actually fit. Okay. But keep reinforcing those same principles, and pretty soon AI and Google will know you for those principles.
What was that? That's a really cool message in terms of it's not just the website, it's what you do, it's your message. Well, Chris, I've really enjoyed this. So thank you
Me
so
too.
much for your time.
Oh, no problem.
And thank you for all our listeners.